Ah, yes, when Scoey's away, the Skeeter will play. Great to have you with us. This is the Shelter FootyCast, live from the BackChat Studios. Of course, this is the Shelter FootyCast for WA's best footy show, WA's best beer, combined to bring you all the biggest footy news and preview round 8. Thanks to the Southern River Boys, with, of course, their music is leading us into another podcast here, shelterfootycast.com.au, socials at Shelter FootyCast, FootyCast at backchatstudios.com.au, and the YouTube BackChat Shelter FootyCast playlist. None of that means a lot to me, Hammer, but you are my main man today, my friend.
That's a mouthful, Skeet. Good to be here. And I'm looking forward to it. A big round of football coming up.
Can you believe it is round 8? We've already sailed through a third of the season almost.
Plus round 0 or opening round or whatever the hell it is. So we're actually, we're flying along and yet to win a game, the West Coast Eagles.
Anything you regret in your pre-season predictions at this point?
Yeah, I said Adelaide were going to be shit. They're actually turning to be not great. I thought West Coast and North Melbourne would win around 6 games, so that's a horrible prediction.
I think we're all on that same
What
page.
I said Richmond won't win a game. That was a bad one.
Oh, after round 1.
Yeah, they've already won a couple. What else did I say? And I said Melbourne would make finals. So
you're pretty much on par with what the rest of us are doing. By the way, if you're a small business owner or even looking at taking your side hustle to the next level, contact Aspect Accountants this end of the financial year for a free initial consultation on all things accounting and tax. And by the way, 10% off Shelter Brewing beers as we speak. 10% right now, the beers, shelterbrewing.com.au or shelterfootycast.com.au, and we'll keep you up to date on Monday on how Scully's going with his footy tipping, because that is, massive hole. And you know that for everyone...
Yeah, well, me and him are meant to be tipping together, and he just tips without me. I don't get the call, and I get a text saying, hey, mate, what are we thinking this week? And all of a sudden he forgets, and now you're in a hole. We're 2,100 people, 210 people are in front of us.
Yeah, so that,
that's $10 per... Yeah.
Yeah, and are you lumped into that payment plan?
No, God, no.
Thank you very much. Well, that's Scully's to take care of. The big moments of the round, there's plenty of them. Paul Curtis, 3 weeks. We've got Luke Parker responding on Insta, talking about this being a touch game tonight between the Bombers and North Melbourne. Kane Cornes blacklisted by North Melbourne. We've got St Kilda coach Ross Lyon going off his head about Alex Turo getting a 4-match ban. And you're pretty hot on the tribunal after what you've seen over the past few days.
I'm sick of it. I can't believe... I don't think North Melbourne appealed that decision. They should have, but there was no point, because he was never going to get off. The AFL have always just have got these things stuck in their mind, and there's no common sense when it comes to making a decision of a football nature. They just stick with their concussion. Okay, yep, sweet. You're no worries. You're out. So it's really frustrating, and the response from the North players has been great. Luke Parker, it's a touch football game. Josh Sim can put something up, and then Paul Curtis changed his logo on Instagram. You're not really across this, Skate.
No, I'm not.
But he changed his icon to ATFL, Australian Touch Football League. So that was quite funny.
Well, are you going to fine for that?
I hope so, but I hope he just then doesn't pay it, because really, what's the point? The AFL are just useless when it comes to this sort of stuff. Even the Mitch Hinge incident, Hinge punched Andrew in the face in the Freo Adelaide game, clipped him, got a week, no dramas. And then Adam Cherry did the exact same thing. And because he plays for Carlton and it's one of the big clubs, and the AFL just looked the other way with those sort of things. So Adam Cherry did the exact same thing as Mitch Hinge and got off. And there's no consistency with it. Everyone's getting frustrated, everyone's getting annoyed. And I'm wasting my breath talking about it because there's just no answer.
Laura Kane has come out.
Oh, Laura Kane thinks everything's going great. Of course she does. Oh, the game's in a great spot. No, it's not, Laura.
Is it any worse, the MRP, than it was 12 months ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Well, it's just because I think 12 months ago you used to be able to, last year, at the start of last year anyway, they took into consideration previous events, and then they stopped doing that. Then you're allowed a character reference. You're not allowed to do that anymore. And now it's just on a whim, they do whatever they want. So to sit there as the boss and say the game's in a great state, you're looking at that she made reference to the numbers and the fans attending games and the scoring. And of course they're going to be up because there's nothing else to watch. AFL fans watch AFL. AFL fans don't watch the NRL. Well, not all of them. AFL fans aren't going to just not tune in if their team's playing. But it's just, I just don't get it. It'd be like the Perth Water Corporation putting piss in all the water, in all the taps. You have to drink water to survive, so everyone's going to drink water. And of course there's going to be, there's not going to be an enormous drop in the water sales because everyone has to drink, but everyone's going to be like, hey, this actually tastes a little bit like piss. How about we change that? And that's what's happening at the moment. They're hearing all these complaints left, right and centre, and then they're just sort of getting in and around it, and they're doing nothing about it.
Yeah, Water Corp could do worse than put some shelter in the
that'd be nice.
in the system to get the movement amongst the folk. Now, while we've got North Melbourne on the radar, we're going to talk just a bit about the Eagles as well. What's happened in the last couple of days? Interesting. Todd Viney, Kane Cornes.
Yeah.
Kane's been banned from interviewing the coach, Alistair Clarkson, tonight with Channel 7 because of inappropriate, bullying.
Vindictive bullying.
Okay, let me ask you this. You've straddled both sides of the footy field and the media now. Where do you sit with Kane Cornes on what the Harry Sheasel stuff? Did he go over the top, or are you happy with it?
The Harry Sheasel stuff was going a bit too far. And I look at some of the clips that he showed, it was just an in-tight handball that he got from half back and then just kicked. It's like, that happens all the time. Why are you blaming Harry Sheasel? And you look at, he then brought up the comparisons with Nazai Wanganeen-Millera and was saying how much better, you look at all his score involvements, he's so much better. We've played 7 games. Wanganeen-Millera's score involvements was 6.1 per game. Harry Sheasel's were 4.9. He's being involved in one more score per game, and you're just saying that it's chalk and cheese between the two of them. That means 8 more score involvements. There's only been 8 games, so I don't understand that criticism there. Those numbers were, if it was like 15 to 2 per game, then yeah, you could ask questions. But for a young kid who's North's best player to go out and say that sort of stuff about him was, I think, a bit over the top. And I got no issue with Kane because that's what he does. He's a knee-jerk. He's a shock jockey. He goes out there and says these things and has to and he does a great job when it comes to drawing attention. Look at the world's blown up about this. So Channel 7 would be happy with him. He'd be happy with what's going on. And he said the other day, I listened to something that he said, it's not the first time he's been barred from going into the rooms to speaking. Simo wouldn't have him in the West Coast rooms. Apparently the Bulldogs don't let him in. So he's just whittling down his prospects. But it was a bit much.
I've got to say, given how many platforms he is on and how many 7 shows and SEN and podcast, then I actually admire him. How he manages to come up with passionate subjects every day is something that I know. He's a fan of Stephen A. Smith. I know you've seen him and heard his work on in American sports television. But gee whiz, it's a long season if you're going after someone every day.
He's gone out and said Harry Sheasel gets cheesy ball, he's stat padding, all the rest of it. And then the same breath said that Jason Horne-Francis clearly thought that Ken Hinkley had finished talking when he turned and walked away, which is just a blatant lie. So he obviously has his favourites, Kano, because you've got the vice-captain and the captain, or Butters and Rosé, both standing there. As soon as Horne-Francis walked, they grabbed him and pulled him back. So clearly Ken wasn't finished talking. Anyway, we'll see how that one plays out, because I imagine Harry Sheasel's going to go big tonight.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he handled himself pretty well in his response on social media, I think it was. So he was terrific, and Kane will be Kane, and it won't bother him in the slightest. No. Before we get on to the matches for this weekend, beginning tomorrow night, West Coast Eagles, a lot of chat still about the meeting that John Worsfold was involved with, the players, Gavin Bell, not so much. I think Andrew McCalton may not have been there, about the culture and about the Oscar Allen incident. How often does this happen at footy clubs? Or when times are tough, I guess they get highlighted more. Yeah,
not to that extent. From what I'm aware, the meeting that they had was a crisis meeting of on-field performance, as not a heap about culture. It was more like, hey, this is like now been 5 years of us being really bad. What's going on? Because we're not getting better. We're not, what's happening here and there, and there was no real clarity on what's going on off the field and on the field, and they just sat down and really nutted out expectations, and the players were giving harsh feedback. The players were receiving some pretty harsh feedback. That sort of meeting doesn't happen a lot. That'd be sort of, I reckon I would have had one of those sort of meetings in my time that I wasn't even involved in. It was just the leaders. But the giving and receiving of feedback from members of the staff to the players and vice versa happens regularly. So it's not as if it's an uncommon occurrence, but that level of meeting and that intensive conversation is pretty infrequent, but so is being this bad for so long. That doesn't happen very often. So it's it was certainly needed. And after that they had a response. So they did it. It happened after the Carlton game, and they nearly beat us, and then they were still lost by 50 points, but
The numbers are better. The numbers are getting better. We'll discuss that shortly. Just one line on this. Jamari Ugle-Hagan taking leave from the Bulldogs. Will he play for the club again?
Never. No, he won't.
Okay.
Never play for... He'll play football again at some other club, but he's done with the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who's going to argue with that at this point, the way that is tracking. This is the Shelter FootyCast with Skeet and Hammer. Thanks to Shelter Brewing Co., the beer that we can't get enough of. Let's jump straight into it. St Kilda and at the Dockers tomorrow night, Marvel Stadium. Luke Jackson, you're pretty bullish that he'll play. Oscar McDonald might be unlucky. Buddy Banfield has received a week in the WAFL for striking. And the Saints have some issues as well, including Mason Wood out with concussion protocols. What are you thinking here?
It's devastating. Mason Wood's a very, very good player. Well, first things first, we've got Peel this week, so Buddy Banfield missing a week doesn't mean no harm. But I think Fremantle are... They're one win away. If they put a really strong performance in tomorrow night, they're back. And I think it's, you forget about the start of the year. The Geelong game is the Geelong game. That's fine. That happens and whatever. Since then, they've lost a couple they should have won, but the Adelaide performance on the weekend and the way that their best players worked and the middling players worked, that's a finals brand of football. And if they can produce something like that again, then I think they're well and truly on their way to being back. St Kilda, with the exception of the last 2 weeks, have been really good. And they've been beaten against two good teams in the last couple of weeks. But they're playing a lot better football than they have been in the last few years. So I think it's going to be a really good game. Under the lid at Marvel, skills will be up, pressure will be on. I think Fremantle's midfield is going to be too strong for the Saints, and that'll get them going through. But, there's matchups all across the ground that are intriguing. Like Cal Wilkie's a best and fairest winner and he's a star, and Josh Tracy's flying. So how does that work? It's going to be a good battle. I'm looking forward to it. I think Freo will be too good.
Yeah, you mentioned a high skill level. I don't know. Maybe it's the Ross Lyon game I called against Brisbane last week. Their best can be good. Don't get me wrong, against Geelong, for instance, but when they're not on, and they've got some outs this weekend. We mentioned Mason Wood, Hugh Boxall, by the way, from Claremont.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you've seen or heard of him, but debuting for the St Kilda, which is great news for him. Jack Higgins is having a really good season. We talk about the smalls and the tools.
Yes.
Josh Tracy, who's firing for the Dockers up forward. Jack Higgins, equal second in the Coleman.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They've got they don't have Max King or Tim Member anymore, but they're finding other avenues to goal, and that's what I've been super impressed with the Saints, is they're finding ways to score. All these little whippets are running around kicking goals. Miller is kicking goals from the middle, and you speak of the skill level, it can be dour and a Ross Lyon style game, but if you get the ball in the hands of Sinclair, if Wanganeen Miller is running through the middle of the ground with the ball, if Higgins has got the footy inside 50, there's some class through that team, and they can expose you by foot, but they then also can get the ball in the hands of other guys who are scrappy and just in and under, and it's not as pretty. But I just think Fremantle, the way they worked against Adelaide on the weekend, they didn't overshape the ball with hands. They found the first one and then went. And it was a style of football that's repeatable, and there was a lot of pressure on the ball, and they were slick, quick, and clean. And I think if they can do that again, they'll really put it to the Saints, and they'll be well and truly back.
I mentioned Oscar McDonald, probably a bit unlucky given what he did against the Crows, but let's be honest, Luke Jackson, you think will play?
Yep.
Alongside Sean Darcy. It'll be the first time this year that the two have played alongside each other. Ideally, this is what you want to see. This is what they recruited Luke Jackson for, to have this type of combo.
Yep, exactly. And if it works, it'll be. If it works, they'll go deep, because the last time that a double ruck duo really has worked was Jackson and Gawn in the grand final, and it was they dominated. Gawn was good. Jackson was down forward. He came on the ball for a spurt here and there as the ruck and was just everywhere. And, he was a massive part of that. What was it, a 60-point turnaround or whatever it was late? He was a massive part of that. And if they can get the two of them working together, it's a danger.
Dockers for you, Fremantle for me. In an ugly game, I'm tipping tomorrow night under the roof, despite the fact the conditions should be perfect. I reckon Ross Lyon will turn this into a real slugfest. Let's hope that Justin Longmuir is prepared. Saturday night, the Eagles at home to Melbourne, Optus Stadium, 5:35 Perth time. Eagles still looking for their first win. They did defeat the Demons last year at Optus Stadium. A couple of milestones. Oscar Allen plays game number 100. Tim Kelly on track to return from a toe injury, 150th game looming for him, and I guess the ins and outs were still to find out, but I did hear a stat that since 2000, Hammer, the Eagles have won 18 out of 25 round 8 matches.
I did see that.
By the same token, I think they've won about 6 games out of 75 in the last 3 or 4 years. So you can read into stats what you want.
You can, and I think that the one time I've been torched by a stat this year that I completely ignored was the Geelong and St Kilda game, where the last leg of my multi was Geelong at $1.30, and all of a sudden I didn't read into the fact that Saints had beaten them for the last however many times and had stormed over the top. So I might be reading into this a little bit, but I just don't think they're up to it. I think Melbourne have got their star power is too good. If it was, if you lose a Gawn, then it's anyone's game. But Gawn will run amok on the weekend. And Clayton Oliver is, he's still a very classy player. Christian Petrarca's a star. And they've just got little guys and little
What about Cozzy? Who's going to? Is it Brady Hoff who goes to Cozzy?
Has to go to Brady Hoff. Brady Hoff's been running a little bit through the midfield, and I think that I don't know whether or not that's necessarily his position, but he did a job when he did that. And Cozzy's that guy who goes forward and goes in the midfield, so I think Hoff's the perfect matchup for him. And I just don't know they've got anyone else that'll do it.
Where does Oscar Allen play?
I think you have to play him up forward. He's lost down back. That being said, Melbourne don't have a great forward line, so that could be a chance to sort of get him a bit free. But he was clearly underdone and clearly unfit, and you need to be switched on 100% of the time as a defender. And you saw what happened with Choli in the goal square. He just wasn't. He hasn't played fullback in a long time, and Scully was stoked when this happened because he realised it showed the world that how hard it is to be a fullback. But it's a tough caper, and I think he's much better suited up forward.
Yes, Tom Gross. 24 disposals, 1 goal. Clay Hall, 27 and a goal. Both putting their hand up for selection for the Eagles. Gross particularly feels a bit unlucky.
Yeah, I think he was really stiff. I remember talking to Liam Duggan about Gross at the start of the year, before any games had been played, just late in the preseason, and he said this kid has got something. He's as naturally talented as anyone he's ever seen, and he's a real sort of a good operator who just goes about his business. And watching the way he played that first game against GWS, yes, they got smoked, but he was a shining light. I thought he was excellent in that game, and to have the stones in your first game to just pick the ball, go bang, and then kick a goal from 50 on the run, there you go. You've got a bit of something about your kid. So I thought he was pretty stiff to go out of the side, and you look at it, and I think if you're trying to get midfield depth and you're trying to get a bit of zip and excitement around there, a kid like that's probably a good one to have in. I don't know if Melbourne's the game to do it because they've got Viney and Petrarca and Oliver and Gawn, and maybe he'll get exposed a bit, but I think you have to find a way to get kids like that in your team. Exactly.
Jacob Van Rooyen, still a kid himself, kicked 5 in the VFL last week. We know they've scored reasonably well the last couple of weeks, but if they're going to go long term, he's a guy for them. He's, I guess, a question mark as to whether he plays. Your selection, and do you think that the Eagles, this is a winnable game in my opinion. I know you've talked about the big names for Melbourne. Do you think the Eagles will win a game this year?
I think they will win a game this year. I think it's so unlikely they get through a year without winning, and I don't think they'll win this game. I think Melbourne will be too good. That's my tip. But I think towards the back end of the year, especially after the bye.
In Bunbury,
well, maybe not even in Bunbury, but you get Yo back, you get McGovern back, fully fit. Oscar's fully fit. You get some guys back and playing good football. And if you haven't won a game yet and it's round 12, round 13, round 14, every team that you come up against starts twitching and being like, I don't want to be the first. I don't want to be the first. I don't want to be the first. And there's a bit of momentum that gathers. And I think they're going to be good enough against a team who's bad enough on their day that they'll win a game. I don't think it's going to be this weekend. I think that Max Gawn is such an influence in a game like this, where if you've got class around him, because Gawn will have the hit-outs, he could have 60 hit-outs on Saturday. And if he has 60 hit-outs, 20 of them will be to advantage, and they'll go inside 50 all of those 20 times. And if that happens, they'll kick 7 or 8 goals from just Gawn's hits. The rest of that can take care of itself. I think the weight of numbers is going to be too strong for Melbourne. I hope I'm wrong. I hope West Coast can do something about it and really get going. But I just think he's too good, and they're going to be a bit too good on the weekend.
Melbourne for you, Melbourne for me, but I think this is winnable for the Eagles for some strange reason. And some of those numbers, of course, brought to you by...
That's why.
Round 8, that's going back in the last 25 years. Aspect Accountants bringing us all the stats for the Shelter FootyCast here on a Thursday morning. Okay, let's jump into the rest of the round, beginning on, tonight. It's Essendon and North Melbourne. I'm doing this game for radio at Marvel Stadium. Not sure I'm that pumped about it, but I guess there's a bit of a fascination with how North Melbourne responds after being kicked in the teeth by the tribunal, by Kane Cornes. Caleb Daniels celebrates his 200th game. We know the Paul Curtis situation, and Darcy Tucker's been dropped. 0 touches in 97 minutes of game time. That's a pretty fair stat. Thank you to Riley.
It was crazy. The donut. I love being on Donut Watch and sort of checking in as you go along. Jack Buckley and I, who was playing the night that this happened, he and I always will text each other when someone's on a donut. And it was half time of that game. I was waiting to go and play Perth. We just got there, and I text Jack and I was like, "Mate, I know you're getting ready for a game now. You won't have your phone, but we're on Donut Watch." Text him at 3/4 time, still on Donut Watch. Got subbed out 5 minutes into the game. We've got our first of the year, and he replied after the game, and it was very, very funny. But look, I think I'm expecting North to come out and be as aggressive as they ever have been. Like there's a lot to play for in this. Curtis has been their best player of the year. They're going to be ropeable about what's happened. I feel like a couple of weeks ago against Carlton, they were fired up and then came and laid an egg. So they've got something to bounce back. They have to bounce back. I also find it very funny that this year their 3-star recruits have played massive milestone games and have only played about 4 or 5 for the club. Jack Darling played 1 or 2 games for North and got chaired off. Luke Parker's played 3 games for North and been chaired off. And now Daniel's going to play his 200th, then we'll get chaired off. And it's that it makes me laugh. But yeah, I think they're it's the Goldstein Scott Cup, and I just got a weird feeling about North Melbourne just going big this week and bouncing right back.
Well, Dylan Shealer's out managed, so that's one out for them. Essendon has, I know you like to look back and say, the multi you talked about, Essendon's won their past 11 against North, dating back to 2016. And North Melbourne have lost the inside 50 battle every game this year, which comes as probably no surprise given the results. So Finbar Maley will debut for North. What do you know about him?
Not a lot. Not a lot, old Finbar.
Because when I sit in that seat, Scully asked me that question, I say exactly the same thing.
If he walked in the door right now, I'd be saying, you're dropping off some post or something. I couldn't tell you who he is. But that being said, I like it. I like the fact that they're bringing in new guys. They have to bring someone in, obviously, because Curtis is out. But I just have this sense that it's now or never for North, and I've said that for a long time, but it feels like they've got to show something this year because the writing is on the wall for everyone in there. There's, Clarko is the guy, I think. I'm certain of it. But to sort of quash some external noise, he's got to get a win. And there's all this talk happening about Sheasel stat padding. Watch him have 40 this week and be damaging. He'll have 40 and kick 2. And they'll win. They'll win this game, North Melbourne. I'm certain of it.
That's the upset of the round for you then.
Upset of the round, North Melbourne. What are the odds there?
They'd be prohibitive.
They'd be $3-4.
They'd be up there. I think it's $1.40 for Essendon for what it's worth. So that would make them like 280 or 290. Finbar Maley. I'm looking forward to calling his name tonight. I'm tipping Essendon purely because North are no good.
$3 for North.
There you go.
Shut up and take it.
Well, there you go. There's the mail from Hammer. Western Bulldogs and Port Adelaide Mars Stadium, Ballarat on Saturday. Jason Johannesson plays his 200th match. Of course, West Aussie Premiership player, Norm Smith medal. Bulldogs have won 9 of 13 at Ballarat, but 2 of their losses were against Port Adelaide. We know Josh Sin is out with concussion. Ryan Burton likely a replacement. And Adam Treloar is pushing for selection. So their midfield mix starting to look a lot better now with the Bont back there, Libba, Fraser, Kennedy Richards.
Fraser's a star.
He's a good young player,
He's
isn't he?
a gun. They win. The Bulldogs are well and truly back in the hunt now. And you look at the start of the year, they weathered enough of the storm without these gun players back, and now they're just a class above.
Now they had no midfielders at the start of the year and plenty of forwards.
Yeah, now it's the other way around.
Now the other way around, yeah.
Look, like the impact that Marcus Bontempelli has had coming back into that side, they just look so different. What he has been able to do off the field is obviously help and coach these guys inside that are playing to just take their games to a new. Libba's found his best form of his career. Fraser, as you said, has just come in and just exploded. Matt Kennedy they've got from Carlton where, to be honest, I thought he was a good player at Carlton, but wasn't really getting the attention or the looks because Cripper was dominating and Walsh and all the rest of it. But now he's come in and in the absence of Bont has really stepped up as that grunt guy. I think they're just a really well-set team. And Sam Darcy not missing a full season is going to be massive for them because they'll get him back towards the back end. But they've just got talent. Like Ed Richards is a weapon. As I said, Fraser stepped up and he's going everywhere. They've still got Waitman to come back in. They've got Treloar to come back in.
Imagine like losing Chamara Ugle-Hagan Darcy, but then you've got still a bloke that's been in pretty average form, but now he has to be the main man, Aaron Norton.
Absolutely. And he's like, he's a, what did he sign, $800,000 or something? He's on a massive contract because he's a good player, and he's just been out of form recently. So to get him back and in form is going to be huge. They brought in a kid, Jed Buslinger, an old teammate of mine from East Perth, who played really well in his first game, and like they've got good players, and they've obviously got a really good culture. And I don't like, obviously the Jamara stuff might have marred that a little bit, and you look past it, but Bevo's been there for a long time. Bont's been there for a long time. They've had success, and they've been able to maintain a relatively solid performance since the two of them have been there especially. And there's clearly a good culture down there because they're bringing in good kids. They're bringing in good guys. They're bringing guys from other clubs that are then playing well. And, I mean, look at James Harms even. He's a guy that's come from almost being done in his career, and he's flying again. So I'm happy with the Bulldogs. I think they're the real deal again. And yeah, I can see them getting better and better. I can see them pushing really deep into the back end of the year with fitness coming back.
And winning on the weekend?
I think they'll win on the weekend.
Yeah. Port Adelaide have kept opponents to under 100 points 6 weeks in a row, which is saying something for them. But I'm with you. I think the Bulldogs, I think Bevo's done a great job. And Jed Busling, you mentioned him. He was a former Oz Kicker of the Year going back in time.
Former Oz Kicker of the Year. And Luke Darcy presented it to him. Luke Darcy was the one that knocked on the door and said, "Oh, Jed, here's your Oz Kicker of the Year."
And as part of the Oz Kicker of the Year, he was part of the AFL Grand Final medal presentation, and he gave his to Adam Goods, received it from Sydney, and he's struck up a friendship and a mentorship with, as you know, with Selwood, Joel Selwood, over the journey. So good to see. And he's had a long time. He's been at the club for 2 or 3 years.
He has been.
But you're right, East Perth Colts, young man who's going well, and I think 12 disposals against who the Bulldogs played the Giants last week, so well under him. Adelaide and Carlton at the Adelaide Oval on Saturday. Carlton's never beaten Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval, losing only 3 games on average of 47, so that's a small sample size. Jack Silvani with a hand, Zach Williams with a calf out for the Blues. Riley Thilthorpe with a finglet dislocation is expected to play, so he should. I mean, it's just a finger. I mean,
popped out of the skin.
The skin. Obviously, I've done it playing mixed netball and
you straight that up and go again next week.
So maybe it's a bit more serious than what I did. Darcy Fogarty, the shoulder's a test. If both play, that leaves a tough matchup for the Blues with Silvani out, leaves Wiedering, McGovern, Haynes as the tall defenders. We know Nick Murray with the knee is out for the Crows. Jordan Butts is a like-for-like replacement. So some of those ins and outs, Adelaide, Carlton, a fascinating game. Now the Blues are up and running.
Yeah, it's going to. I think this game will depend heavily on the availability of Adelaide's forwards. If those two boys come back, Fogarty and Thilthorpe, they've got Wiedering to just do it all on his own, and that's going to be hard. Silvani's been so good this year, and so for him to miss is a real whack. Obviously, Chera got pardoned by the tribunal because he plays for Carlton and he's available, so the midfield battle's going to be a good one. Cripps is finding form again. Walsh is now up and going, and the three of them, coming up against Dawson, Saligo and Rankin and Crouch running through the middle. It's going to be a good inside battle. And, I think this game rests heavily on the availability of Adelaide's forwards. If they are fit and ready, they're going to be too strong. I think if they miss, though, Carlton are riding this wave of momentum. To beat Geelong the way they did was exceptional. And, I think it's the year that a couple of records can be broken, round 8s and Adelaide Ovals and all the rest of it. And I think if I'm going to tip at the moment Adelaide because I think the two of these tools are going to play. But as soon as one or both of them are out, I will be changing my tip. So I'm going to tip Adelaide tentatively, but I think Carlton will give this a real shake. Yeah, I'm tipping Adelaide. I thought they were well below their best against the Dockers. Maybe that was Fremantle not allowing them to be that. And I thought Carlton got Geelong at a pretty good time after that brutal match on the Monday. So that being said, Adelaide, jury's out. I agree with you. They've sort of tailed off a fraction. I agree. But I'm tipping the Crows to win that one. Speaking of Geelong, Collingwood have got them Saturday night MCG. This will be a beauty. Unfortunately, it's going toe-to-toe with the Eagles-Melbourne game at Optus, so we won't get to see this. Cats will send me off in style with a win, says Riley. Where's he going? On holidays? Is he quitting?
I don't know if he's coming back, but he's going away from Europe for a few months.
Oh, of course, for a few months.
Riley's going away to Europe for a few months. That's good on him.
Yeah, well, this is a footy season, and our main man just says, see you later.
Yeah, see you later. I'll tell you what, I'm glad we previewed the Melbourne West Coast game because I won't be watching a lick of that. This game will be on. This game just takes front and centre priority. This will be match of the year so far, I think.
Including an element which is going to be significant. Jack Crisp breaks Jim Stein's consecutive games record, 245 games. That streak started in round 18, 2014.
That is as incredible a stat as you'll ever see. That'll never get broken again, I don't think. It's remarkable that he's never been sick, that he's never been injured, that he's never been sore. Suspended. It's just an incredible statistic. And he is such a valuable player for them. He breaks lines. He goes through the middle if he needs to. He plays off half-back. He's had an exceptional career and he still looks youthful and like he could do this for another, 50-odd, 100-odd games.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Darcy Moore, by the way, returns for Collingwood. Lockie Schultz is a test after a hammy. Dowmick stays out for 6 weeks with an MCL, so does Mason Cox come back in? Brian Myers is a test after that concussion on Easter Monday. Collingwood have won their past 8 at the G, and They play there every week. So it doesn't really matter. Geelong back-to-back 6-day breaks and Collingwood back-to-back 8-day breaks. I think Riley's just leaning to the fact that the Cats are at a disadvantage in this one. Now, since going to Geelong, Jeremy Cameron has 23 goals from 6 games against Collingwood. So for aspect accountants, that's a significant number, Jeremy Cameron. But this is standout game of the round.
This is for me going to be game of the year so far.
Wow.
Collingwood are as good a team as there is in the comp at the moment. I think they're the number one. I think they're obviously the flag favourites. They're there for a reason. But Geelong have just got this ridiculous ability to be good all the time, no matter what. And the 6-day break stuff, I think for any team, Geelong, it doesn't really bother them too much because they play, like their training schedule and their culture is get the work done and have enough, have your time off. So they'll be rested enough and they're very veteran and seasoned enough to be, know how to handle these sort of things. I hate talking about him so much because he's so good and he gets a lot of airtime. But, just what are Geelong going to do with Nick Dacos is the question that I have.
Scully's adamant. You have to try and put someone onto him in a stopping role.
So I listened to this. Daisy Thomas said a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about Gary Ablett back in his prime. And the quote that he said, or paraphrasing him, was leading into the game, there was 2 options. There was option 1, tag him and try and keep him to 30. Which is ridiculous. Or 2, don't tag him and he's going to be the best player on the ground. And that's where Dacos is at. If you don't tag him and you give him no attention, he'll run around, do whatever he wants and he'll be the best player on the ground. If you tag him, you might be able to keep him to 30 and stop his line-breaking ability. He's always going to find the ball. I think he shook that moniker of being sort of outside after his first year. He was playing off half-back. He went inside and started dominating clearance. So you can't stop him there. He's such a powerful runner that he finds space. But also, because he's such a good user of the ball, his teammates just look for him all the time. And it's a luxury to have a guy like that in the team who is such a good user and so fit, because if you're looking for him, he's there, going to be there most times. So I don't know how they're going to stop that. Who's going to go to him? I don't think. O'Connor, is he playing?
He's there probably.
He's their stopper.
But
I don't know.
He's almost unstoppable.
He is almost unstoppable. But then on the flip side for Geelong, I look inside their forward line. Collingwood have got a strong back line, but Quain is going to have to go to Paddy Dangerfield here, who is a wrecking ball inside 50. And I don't know. Quain is a very good player, but I don't know. I think that this is a game where Dangerfield could have 15, 16 and kick 4 or 5. And it's going to be, how is that going to happen? How's that going to? Who are you going to stop there? Who's going to stop Jeremy Cameron? Darcy Moore's coming off what it was certainly concussion, not vertigo. But this is going to be game of the year for me. I'm very much West Coast, unless they're winning by, unless it's tight, West Coast will not get a bit of airtime on my telly because this game is going to be right on.
And winning? Who?
Collingwood,
yeah, me too. Collingwood, I think, just trust them a bit more at the moment. Amazing after what they did in round 1. They've just bounced back in such amazing fashion.
Agreed.
Let's go to the Battle of the Bridge. The Swans, the Giants, SCG Sunday. Swans have won their past 4 against the Giants, including last year's qualifying final when, let's be honest, the Giants choked. They choked. 28 points up and they completely capitulated. Stephen Coniglio with the glute as a test. Swans are 0-3 at the G this year. So a lot of factors there. And Toby Bedford, speaking of taggers, does he go to Heaney or Warner?
I think after what happened in the final last year, he'd go to Heaney because Heaney just willed them over the line. But I just don't think Sydney are that good at the moment.
No.
I think they've just got, you can talk about premiership scarring and premiership hangovers. they are clearly scarred and burdened from what's happened to them the last 2 years.
And it's quite natural that teams who've been just near the top of the mountain, they've used up so much petrol that at some stage, I thought Port would be in that same boat this year, but they're hanging around. But yeah,
it's just remarkable how good their players are, but how they're just not able to find it at the moment. And Heaney and Warner and these guys, like Goulden is a massive out for them, just through the way that he transitions the ball from half back to half forward, and the link up play that he can give is such a big out. But they're just off. And I think the Giants are a really good side, and I still have them sort of battling out for the back end of the year. But Sydney are just nowhere at the moment, and I can't in any good faith think that they're going to win this game because they just haven't shown anything.
Midway through the second quarter last week against the Suns, I think they led by 3 or 4 goals. I was watching it, I think this. You could see the game just change before your eyes, and they were steamrolled by the Suns. And look, I'm not saying that the Giants are going to smash them, but I'm with you. They're out of form, Sydney. The Giants, not great themselves against the Bulldogs, but I just think they've got the more quality players.
Yeah, I agree. I think Giants win.
Yeah, me too. Hawthorn, Richmond, MCG Sunday. This is Hawthorn's centenary celebration games. Hawks are wearing a special jumper with every player, coach name, the club history on the jumper. I think Clarko's going to be at this celebration game, I think. I've read that somewhere. Jack Gunston, 2 goals away from 500. Has kicked 17 goals in 5 matches this year, and the Hawks have won 8 of 9, their last 9 at the G. Look, we know there was a big occasion for Dusty last year. I think it was his big moment. But Hawthorn's quality here should again shine, a bit like it did against the Eagles.
They'll win this game by close to 100. It'll be very much game over in the first 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll. I think Hawthorn are going to be like you saw them last week. They just toyed with West Coast. Like Sam Mitchell's put Tom Barras full forward for a laugh.
They were inaccurate. They could have smashed them. They could have
won by 100. I think they're going to play the first 5 or 10 properly, get 4 or 5 goals up, and then feed Jack Gunston to get him 500, and then they'll just do whatever they want. It's going to be, it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath, this one.
Scrimshaw and Amorn both are out with concussion. Noah Bolter is back because it's a day game,
he can
obviously.
Play this game.
Yeah, it's a day game. The curfew doesn't apply. Josh Smiley picked 7, 24 touches and 5 clearances in the VFL last week. Is firming for a debut. Both picking the Hawks to win that one. Final game of the round is the Q Clash, Brisbane and the Gold Coast, up at the Gabba Sunday night. It's 5:20.
Yeah, late one. This would be a good game.
Yeah, it's nice. I'll just have to tell my wife that I'm just up in the media room watching footy on a Sunday night.
A couple of shelters. Sorry about that, Dale.
This is probably the best, in terms of in form, best matchup we've seen between these two clubs.
Definitely.
Sunday night prime time, as we said. Brisbane's won 11 of its past 12 against the Suns, and the Gold Coast haven't scored 100 points at the Gabba since 2015, scoring the highest scoring team this year, though. So the Suns are really an offensive weapon, thanks to Aspect Accountants. Where do you see this game heading? Where, look, it hasn't got the rivalry of a derby or a showdown, but there's a bit of feeling between the clubs, I'd imagine.
There certainly is. And I heard someone say throughout the week it can't be a rivalry when it's so one-sided, which is fair enough. But Gold Coast are a different side than they've ever been. And this is the best Gold Coast Suns team we've ever seen. And it's really exciting how they're moving the ball and they're all getting involved and their mids are dominating and their backs are really strong and their forwards are weapons. And Ben King, I think, is because he's at the Gold Coast and they've been irrelevant, he just goes so unnoticed. And he is as good a forward as anyone in the comp. People talk about Tracy, people talk about Sam Darcy, and he just gets sort of forgotten. But he is 200 centimetres. He's 20-metre sprints like 2.8. He can jump 1.5 metres in the air. He's so talented, and he's an alien of a player. But because he's not, because he doesn't play at a Victorian club or he's not right next door to us, you sort of forget about him. So he's a massive, massive player, and he'll get Harris Andrews on the weekend, which will be a tough test, but that'll be a massive matchup. And then the battle of the midfields here is just going to be so exciting. I mean, Lachie Neale is, I think, one of the best mids, probably my top 2 or 3 mids in the comp. But then Rao's dominating, Anderson's dominating, Miller's as fit as anyone, and then Dunkley and McClung. It's just going to be, and the Ashcroft. I'm licking my lips at this one too. And for Sunday night, just to sit back, put the feet up, and enjoy it. It's going to be a real game. The only reason that I'm not going to tip the Gold Coast Suns is because it's at the Gabba, and I can't go against the premiership winners at their home ground.
Yeah, remember last year, I think they had a heap of injuries, Brisbane. They still ended up knocking over the Gold Coast Suns. And You're right, there's a bit of rain, I think, up at the Gabba. And if that's the case, I tend to agree with you. The midfield matchup's outstanding. Jack Payne returns for Brisbane, laid out last week, and Kai Lohmann is a fitness test. Both tipping the Lions.
Yeah, I can't go against them.
They were too good against the Saints, and they're going to do it again, we think. This is the Shelter FootyCast. Wrap up with a few Questions and answers. Shelter Brewing, of course, beer fresh from the Busselton foreshore. Justin says, please don't talk positively about Freo. Every time people do, we get comfortable and crumble. Okay.
They're shit and they'll lose this week.
Thank you very much.
Justin.
Nev says, I think from a historic point of view, Freo deserves an Anzac night match. The Anzac soldiers left Fremantle to go to Gallipoli. It's so significant.
Yep.
Victoria has got zero history perspective with the Anzacs. I wouldn't say that's a bit unfair, but I think the Anzac night after Collingwood Essendon or Essendon Collingwood is the Dockers should be trying to lock that away.
I agree, and I mean, you think about it, I like the march that they do in Melbourne and all that sort of stuff. Marching from the Fremantle Harbour to Optus would be a big one. Like, that'd be tough, but doing maybe a parade or something that starts there and maybe a couple of floats or something, I don't know. But yeah, having something in Fremantle and then coming to, that'd be very Anzac significant.
It would be indeed. A couple other ones. Soften the surfaces. The game slows down a bit, which gives players more time to brace for contact. When they do get hit, they've got some spongy grass to land on, says Stu. The surface is too hard. Some are.
Well, Stu, the surfaces are too hard, but you want the game, to protect the players in that respect would go against the AFL's mantra of fast and high-paced and scoring. So Laura reckons the game's in a great state because the game is quick and scoring well, and to do that you need to play on concrete.
And Scott, last couple, I think that with the Eagles' lack of skills, the fatigue factor is pretty big. You practice during the week, but then during a game and your heart rate is 180 and you're rooted, he says.
Yep.
The skills drop off. Is that a fair summation?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair for the last 5 years. I'm happy with that assessment.
Okay, and I think it's anonymous, but it's got ANON, so we're going with anonymous here. Final one, Skeeter has mentioned tattoos 4 weeks in a row now. Did one of his daughters get one or what?
Well, here we go. Did they?
No, and they're not into it. And have you got any tattoos?
Yeah, I got one on my foot that says Kangaroo Bar from a footy trip last year in Thailand. It's the best place ever.
What sort of state were you in at that point?
2:30 a.m, fourth day of footy trip, ready to go.
Enough said. No, I haven't got a tattoo, and if you've got one, go for your life. I just think I didn't.
Skeet hates your guts.
No, I don't. I like people with tattoos, but I don't want one. And my daughters don't have one. If they do, they're not going to live with us for much longer. Anyway, that being said, Hammer, always a pleasure. I know you've got to get off to Paywise, our great supporters of other podcasts on this BackChat setup, to Shelter and all our listeners and those who give us correspondence. We thank you. Enjoy the footy, Hammer. Good luck to the Royals this weekend.
Thank you very much.